Hello and good evening and welcome to tonight's show. It is PMP versus Europe, and you can join me and other people in a multitude of ways. You can join us on IRC, on EFNet if you're listening in. You can join us on slayradio.net via the left-hand side shout box, or you can also join us as a third and my personally constructed option on PmpVsEurope.com, where the visuals for the show should pop any minute now. In fact, it's a little frustrating that they haven't quite yet. This is, in my opinion, YouTube's, I don't know what to call it, kind of weird API delay. I think we talked a little bit about this before, but if you're a small-time fish like I am, well then, there's a limit to the priority that you're given. And I'm just going to go ahead and pop the intro to the show and the visuals. So if you really want to see the visuals before they pop on PmpVsEurope.com, you can still go there, and then you can click on the YouTube icon in the top right-hand side in a separate window, and that should show you a live stream on that channel. Why it's not being made available via the API, I cannot tell you, unfortunately. Let's hope it pops soon. In the meantime, hello to people in, let's see, the chat IRC. We have Madman. I saw Bitten hanging out and saying that they tune in. Luna's around as well. ZXO1 and Bookie as well. All lovely people. So, and of course the rest of you who are neither on IRC, slayradio.net or planmixplay.com, which is totally alright. You know, you do you. Just listening in is more than, in fact, it's not even acceptable, it's wonderful. And hey, maybe you're catching the show on a rerun and then there is no way to participate, at least not currently. And that's just the way it is, you know. It's that's okay. It doesn't all have to be participatory. It can be, you know, kind of, I don't know what to say, just non-participatory, I suppose. The bed's going to go in a bit, and I have a script as well, and honestly, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to see if I can't line up the, God, where is it? I had a song I wanted to play, and of course, as soon as the show, there went the bed, by the way, as soon as I got into like, oh, this is the song I'm going to play, then it's gone. Now I can't find it anymore. Just stick with me for just a second. There we go, DJB Pool Party. And also I do want to say that I appreciate people who have done a bunch of requests. I'll of course get to those as quickly as I can, but at the moment I'm still kind of annoyed that the YouTube stream still isn't popping on PmpVsEurope.com. I've had that been delayed for a long time, sometimes up to 8 minutes, and I only started it about 5 minutes before the show. So I guess it's not so surprising that nothing's been popping yet. So while we wait for that, let's take some DJB with Pool Party to tide us over. Welcome everybody. Let's go. And there we go, a bit of DJB Pool Party. It is a very, very short song, but we're going to go straight into the first request by LP Chip, who is on all the chats, and does make mention that, yeah, currently the website is quite keen on trying to get the broadcast available. And as long as the broadcast isn't available, it's basically not... it's basically just refreshing constantly to see if it can't get a hold of the stream from YouTube. And now there we go. There was Peter W already starting and me not paying attention. Give us a moment, Peter W. Just wanted to say that I do apologize for this sort of wonkiness. And sure enough, LP Chip, I think it's a good idea to jump on IRC for now. But I'll see what I can see. I am quite surprised that it still hasn't popped. It generally works this late in. This is the first time I've ever had it take this long, which is kind of frustrating. I do know that on YouTube you can pre-announce a stream, and maybe that would help, I guess, sidestep this issue. Anyway, I'm going to dig a bit, and in the meantime, we'll enjoy LP Chip's very first request of the evening, Peter W. with a bit of Outrun. It is the No Speed Limit remix. I presume that's the one you want. And there we have a little bit of Peter W. with Outrun, the No Speed Limit remix. And as LP Chip also mentions, the bot is also not doing too well today. It seems like a lot of things are kind of semi-broken. So yeah, that's not ideal. And also, the more frustrating thing is, this isn't, I mean, I can kind of, how should I put this? So there's a way for me to make the site more fixable, which I clearly will have to do, because this is, now we're 12 minutes into the show and the website still doesn't understand that there is actually, there's actually a visual going on. What I'm going to do instead, because I have this backup thing, I'm going to post a link in IRC that's going to give you the chat without having to refresh constantly, because that is a little bit annoying because it kills the chat input. So if you visit that link instead, that's planmixplay.com/chat, you actually get the chat without the stream window on the left-hand side, which is the best stopgap solution that I can provide at this point. And it is annoying. The chat's working. I can't really speak as to why the YouTube API isn't making the stream available. Or maybe it is, and my website just isn't working. That's also an option. But unfortunately, the logs don't really tell me anything currently. So I encourage anyone who wants to participate in the chat and not have the page constantly refresh to visit the link that I provided, which is planmixplay.com/chat. Sorry about that, folks. I'm going to have a look at that. In the meantime, as LP Chip once again mentioned, if you want your request to go through the Slay Radio site, you will have to request on the website as well, because the bot isn't doing too well. And also, hello to you, Cracks Ultima. Thanks for tuning in. Let's see here. So we had a little bit of Peter W. And before that, we had a bit of, what was it, DJB. Now, I think we will have a little bit of Pop with the lame Jump and Run Lame Game C64 remix. And then I'll talk a little bit about, yeah, what's been going on. I do have a tiny script, so let's listen first. Wait a second. I think I might actually know what the problem is. And this is frustrating because it is, of course, my own fault, which it usually is. I mean, I did mention that it could have been my site, which is kind of a bummer. All right, I have an idea. What I'm gonna do is this, and yeah, this is not too smart on my behalf. I've basically been doing some website stuff, and I've been doing some Plan Mix Play stuff as well. And yeah, I think I've left behind some stuff that wasn't clear that I left behind until basically now. So I'm gonna see if I can't very quickly beat the site, because it does check for shows every 15 minutes or so, but it is going to take a while for it to then pop. So in the meantime, listen to Peter Van Konken Funken with my number C64.
I love you, baby. Baby, give me your number. Right.
We called attention and we knew he made no way out to forget him. He slips my heart to take. There is always a problem. He can never ever look at me. He's just an actor, and then what you give on TV. You don't know his number, I don't know his name. The only thing I remember, I never ever learned to sing.
Reflex C64.
About you tonight, you're always in my mind. I'm thinking about you tonight, you're always in my mind.
is D64.
My number is. Man, I have a few things to say. So first of all, a big, warm, hearty local hello to Affe, or Monkey, who is making an appearance in the chat. It's a close personal friend of mine here in Europe, and it's nice to see him tuning in to my shit show, especially when everything is coming apart at the seams. The duct tape is just, man, it's busted. Well, first of all, thanks, LP Chip. I do have something to say to you, which is, of course, a big hearty thank you. And it got me thinking and putting together a script. But before I get to that, I just wanted to mention I have actually submitted a fix to the server. But the way the site currently works is it checks very sparingly whether there's a show going on if there isn't a scheduled one started. And now that we're past the actual show schedule point, it's not going to check, I think, for another 15 or 30 minutes. So hopefully my fix will actually kick the site back into working order. But it's a bummer. And look, these things happen. This is and as Madman points out in IRC, PmpVsEurope 2. Yes, you are not incorrect. God, but as LP Chip, Lord of the Tabs, as they call him, has figured out, you can just have multiple tabs open and kind of see what pops and what happens. And I am keeping a keen eye on the server log, and I should be able to tell when at some point it does a proper query and gets the website back into show mode. But until then, I just can't be bothered because the show is running now and people are listening, and these things happen. That's also why it's kind of a pre-alpha version of everything I'm building. But back to the script. A bit of housekeeping, first of all. So you'll notice, for those of you watching, and I do apologize that people who are just listening will not really get much out of this, and now I actually did a bigger mistake minimizing everything. Yeah, and as Immortal points out, shit happens when you're on the bleeding edge of technology. Exactly. Playing an MP3 file over the internet is just, if that's not the edge of bleeding technology, I just don't know what is. Like, it doesn't get any newer than that. Right, so as I was saying, there's been a few color adjustments, and I want to give a big thanks to LP Chip for volunteering his time and offering some suggestions and improvements. You may recall the last show actually being the first to ever feature a bit of color in the visual output, but I hadn't had a lot of time to adjust them, and arguably still haven't. But I have made some minor tweaks that I'm convinced are overall for the better. It's hopefully much more readable now. And I'll be honest and note, at times, I spend a bit of time thinking about how much I should involve anyone who isn't me in design decisions. And let me state up front, it's got nothing to do with thinking I know best. I know I don't know best, certainly not all the time. I'd like to think I know good a lot of the time, and on a few rare occasions, maybe even best. But plenty of times, I don't know anything at all, and, any help, as long as I can sort of discern between the good stuff and the bad stuff, is more than welcome. Also, hello to Natas, who joins us on IRC. So, why do I hesitate when involving people in building something? And there's an anecdote that I recall hearing from the games industry a while back that I think actually explains it pretty well. I can't exactly remember where I got this anecdote from, so please bear with me as I can't really credit it. Anyway, a large video game software developer was in a very populated area, big city, or what have you, and in the past decade had experienced an increasing number of well-meaning individuals walking off the street into the building reception area and volunteering game design ideas to anyone who would listen. And this included the poor receptionist. And some of you are probably thinking, awesome, free feedback, ideas, etc. And the answer is yes and no. Those of you thinking along the lines of free feedback may be surprised to know that this company decided to tell anyone who came into the building wanting to volunteer design ideas to bugger off. And those who just openly start talking despite being asked to politely leave were forcibly removed. I'm not sure if there were many, but if any of those cases, if there were any actually, but I recall the anecdote's originator emphasizing that these people weren't always compliant if just politely asked to exit the building. Some people would actually just ignore the request and just keep yammering. So why tell people to, pardon my French, fuck off? Well, liability reasons. Probably none of it in any real shape or form, but liable enough that some misguided person, such as those who think it's appropriate to just start spouting design ideas to receptionists at a video game company, might actually try to become litigious if they think, or more importantly, feel they are owed something. So, am I scared of litigation? Currently, not in the slightest. But there are many aspects to why not, and when to be more wary of it. One is what I've asked of help with in the past. Case in point, some color choices. LP Chip in this instance highlighted how alternating colors per chat lines is helpful. And I strongly agree. I've seen this feature many places, used it myself, and arguably this is not something anyone could claim as being a contribution worthy of a magnitude of becoming litigious over. Given the small community of the show, there's a significantly lower chance of someone in our community being super loony. I say that, though, also well aware that, there are still funny people, I would say, in the community, and that, of course, includes me. Furthermore, Plan Mix Play is worthless. It has tremendous value to me, but nothing to anyone else. And while it's hardly surprising, it is maybe not something you think of immediately, that litigation tends to correlate strongly with monetary value. A great example, I think, is maybe who realized that Mentos in a Coke bottle makes for an excellent science experiment. That's irrelevant from a litigation standpoint, as there's no money to be had in using Mentos in Coke. It just became super popular overnight, and someone had to have been the first to do it. However, if you're thinking about who came up with a game design idea to a multi-million-dollar video game, suddenly there's lots of people who might care who came up with this idea. So in regards to this large software developer, I expect their legal team to say that they'd be unlikely to lose a lawsuit to the vast majority of the punters waltzing in right off the street to tell them their genius ideas, but that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they're likely not to lose, or rather they're likely to win. The fact that there is just the possibility alone is enough to shut the shit down, even if they have zero intention of using any ideas. And more importantly, just because they're unlikely to lose doesn't mean that some poor schlub isn't going to try it anyway if they think, or more importantly, feel they're entitled to some grand piece of a game just because they 2 to 3 years ago mentioned some idea to a receptionist that they now feel they deserve all the credit for. This is partially why I occasionally find myself commenting that an idea someone offers me is one I already actively am working on, despite that actually that's a really bad thing to say to someone offering feedback. Regardless of whether or not you thought of something already or not, the best way to get more feedback out of someone is to thank them for the idea and ask for more about it, or possibly slightly challenge it if you have tried it and, found issues with it, and maybe they've found a way around those issues. So just to sum it up, I'm more than happy to listen to any and all feedback at this stage, and while in my mind it's more or less implicit that any such feedback is offered up without any kind of promise of compensation, I realize it isn't implicit for everyone. Hence, I also limit myself in terms of what I ask for help with, and as soon as I feel it's something big, I'd rather compensate people properly. That being said, I'm of course still very appreciative of the help. So once again, LP Chip, your feedback was very much appreciated, and I hope you're as happy as I am to see that the improvements have helped quite a bit. In the same vein, the wife of a good friend of mine suggested having the tape wheel spokes change color when turning, and I've also promptly implemented this, so thanks a lot to her. Before we play the next request, which I believe it's by Cracks, and also I believe people commented on this matter, which I'll delve into a bit, I just wanted to say that the chat layout has also been tightened up a bit more. There's another line in the chat. Things have kind of been shrunk down a bit. And other than that, I have been trying to color things slightly differently as well. Now that I've talked, let's play Cracks Ultima's request, which was a bit of Vagelis Papadopoulos Myth, the rock metal cover, and as LP Chip says, you're welcome, I'll await the check, and of course he does it, just kidding, and my response to that is, don't worry, you can get every last cent that I earn off PMP from, let's just say the next 2 months. It's all yours. Checks in the mail, LP Chip, and thanks again. Hoping to do business with you soon. See you on the other side. bit of dead air and never really hurt anyone, except, I suppose, me. Bad news, I have found out that I have apparently screwed things up so badly with the site that it's not something I can fix live. I thought I could kick things a little bit and kind of, put a bit of duct tape on it, but nope, nothing doing. I'm going to have to fix that tomorrow. But I have, for those of you on slayradio.net, also pasted, yes, yeah, excuse me, pasted a nice little tasty link in Shoutbox in case you wanted to know where to get the visuals from, because they are streaming to youtube.com. They just aren't being updated properly on planmixplay.com, where the chat lives. And if you wanted to join in that chat, it's just going to planmixplay.com/chat, and you'll be able to join us there. So as you can see, I have thought of a couple of like emergency fix situations, I suppose, but what I really need is like a big switch I can pull and say, hey, we are actually doing a show, and this is where you should be querying or kind of doing the stream. I should have two big switches I can basically activate. One is shut down a show, and one is activate a show manually, just in case this ever happens again. But, hindsight and all that. And going back to what a couple of people mentioned on that chat in particular, LP Chip wrote, there's another reason this could have happened. I presume you're talking about why the games company became very, very careful. And he writes, there are control freaks who think that any idea that is not their own is a risk to their intellectual property, or they otherwise want to put their vision to anything they're involved in. And yeah, that's true. It's very possible that that this particular company was just very allergic to new ideas. But how should I put it? I think that any company wanting to not have people wanting to not have people contribute ideas from outside of the company is pretty natural. Like that is it, because it becomes very murky territory when someone who has no affiliation with the company provides some sort of idea or concept that is potentially trademarkable or somehow, something you can protect, and then the company goes ahead and uses it. Like that is very dangerous and murky territory, because the person can kind of just sit back and wait and see what happens. And then if it's not a success, hey, no issue, as usual. When there's no big money involved, it's never a problem. But then suddenly when there is money involved, then this person decides to become litigious about it. And I don't think not wanting punters coming in off the street to tell you how to do your job and come with video game design ideas, I think is very natural. And also, it should be noted, LP Chip, that I can only hope that this game would, of course, still have the game out for testing. So they would totally pay people to come in, try the game out, and get their feedback through that and decide whether they should change something or not. But yeah, just having people walk straight into the building and just start yammering, I'm not surprised that they shut that down from a litigation standpoint. And LP Chip is asking a bit why I can't embed the link via the chat page, and unfortunately not, because the pages aren't static, it's all dynamic stuff, and it would take a bit more effort. And right now, hosting the show, believe it or not, does kind of take 80% of my attention, and for the rest of the show, I'm okay with things being half busted. That's just the way it's gonna have to be. Everyone who's important is already in the chat, obviously, especially Affe, who is very let's not delve into that. Another request is what I'm gonna play now by Bitten, who wanted DHS Hyper Zapper Stockholm Raving. So Bitten, here it is. of dead air, so to speak. Also, let's just see, that was for, I believe, that was Crax Ultima, who won a bit of, no wait, this was, oh man, the previous song was for Crax Ultima, Vagelis Papadopoulos with the rock metal cover. This song was for Bitten, who, he requested a little bit of DHS with Hyper Zapper, Stockholm Raving, and also, as a little bit of a plug to LP Chip, he has apparently put together some music for a game coming out on Steam on January the 23rd called Ball! So have a look at that. I will say it's certainly an uphill struggle these days to become let's just say to become noticed. It's one of those things. Look, I think generally it's great that Steam is here, and now it's easier than ever before to make a video game. But man, if you look at Steam's release page, they are being bombarded with basically new releases. I think it's something like 30, 40, maybe even 50 releases per day. So I don't envy people who are trying to make it in the video game business, and I can appreciate anyone who is giving it a shot. So I would say good, all the best, and thumbs up to you, LP Chip. And yeah, it's tough, and part of it really is the discoverability of it. Like, it is, you need to figure out from the, like, it really is, as they say, you have to spend half your time marketing up an idea and the other half of the time building it, which you really wouldn't think. Like, if I had, to be honest, it's the same in my case. Like, I have this little show, and I am very, very, what's the right word? I'm very fortunate to be in the position to broadcast on the Slay Radio platform. Now, as I've spoken before, the audience size has kind of varied a bit over time. But look, even I usually keep sort of an eye on the stream, and I notice there are 5 people watching the video, which I have a couple of thoughts on this. First of all, as most people on YouTube and any sort of broadcasting platform, I'm tremendously appreciative for people who are giving their valuable time and attention to me, because you could be doing anything at this point, and you've decided that, hey, this dude isn't complete ass, so I'll actually give him a little bit of my time. And I remember back when I first transmitted visuals, which admittedly isn't that long ago, and there was obviously 0 people watching it because there was nothing going on there except it was, kind of updating the song tiles. Now we have chat in there, and we even have a bit of video here. I can even wave at you on the stream and say hello. And that also takes work. But the crazy thing is, this here, this all you see, like all this on the, let's see, over here on this side and below, that is half the battle. The other half is just getting people to ever see this. And so basically what I'm saying is, LP Chip, I can appreciate you wanting to plug your game and trying to get it out there, and I hope it does well. But it is difficult, and there's a good reason why the more popular sort of outlets, especially media outlets, aren't what should I say? Aren't keen to plug anything that comes their way. I've heard Giant Bomb on a number of times talking about how there's no end to people starting Kickstarters asking them to mention them. And the crazy thing is, Giant Bomb, the website, in case you know these guys, they are now such a big, they are a critical mass of such a size that, yes, a mention on their site could potentially make a game that wasn't going to make it. But they are journalists is a big word. They used to be journalists. Now I'm not sure I'd call them journalists, but they do certain journalistic stuff, and they're certainly more journalistic than just a video games website. And if they spent all their time plugging, games that were trying to make it, suddenly it would now be on them to be the deciding factor if they think the game is of worthy quality or not to be plugged. And that is not what that's not their business. In fact, it's probably not most people's business. which is also why influencers, continues to be such a dirty word, is just, yeah, it's become way cheaper. A lot of video game companies have found to just market your game through influencers, because you can pay them way, way less, and they don't necessarily disclose everything they're supposed to, and that is kind of not to the advantage of the consumer. And oh man, but I'm going way off script here, so let's take a bit of DAX with Lotus 3, and then I'll get back on topic and talk about a few things I've noted, because I have another video game related anecdote coming up next. This is DAX with Lotus 3. and a little bit of Dax with Lotus 3 featuring Gibbs remix, which I played for me, because every now and again I get to pick a song. Also, Conductor mentions on IRC, and I couldn't agree more. He basically says, sure, bribery is easier than legitimate promotion, and of course easier than making quality products. Yes, there is a good reason why fake reviews and this general approach is everywhere, because it's way, way easier than making the product good. Like it's a shortcut. History is littered with this sort of crap, and one of the insightful mini documentaries, I suppose you can call, on YouTube that I found really interesting is the one I'm posting a link of now, which basically talks about the driver gate scandal. Anyone here in the chat or listening in might be familiar with the Driver series, that is, well, or the Drive 3R series, which had two excellent games. The first and second game were critically acclaimed, massive smash hits. This franchise was basically poised to take on GTA 3. Like, we're talking GTA 3 era. The Driver games were awesome, and if you want the too long didn't read version, Atari basically went out and straight up bought reviews for the third game in the series. Instead of giving the game was having production issues. It wasn't ready to hit the Christmas market. So the gamble put in front of them, which I think the YouTube, I really do encourage you to watch the video as well, because I think it is very well put together. But they were facing the game not being ready for Christmas release, which is of course quite bad because GTA 3 was going to be out by Christmas. So Atari had a choice as to whether they should bite the bullet and say, all right, the game just isn't ready, cook it for another half year. It's going to cost us more money. We are going to have to leverage more money out of the banks, maybe. Like, we're going to have to take a loan. It's going to hurt our profits, and it is risky because we still don't know how well the game will sell, especially now that GTA 3 is out. That may hurt our sales significantly. But that was option one. The other option, which they unfortunately opted to go with, was to say, no, instead of actually taking this proper risk, why don't we just release the game anyway, but we'll give a review copy to 2 magazines and strike a deal with them where we say, look, the only way you're getting this preview coverage is if you write us a grade A review. And of course, the magazines, obviously, they didn't want to look bad either. But they were told up front, hey, any issues and bugs you find are going to be fixed. The gameplay is solid. And that then prompted these magazines to unfortunately go along with that and say, oh, okay, well, if the bugs are all gone and the wonky gameplay has been fixed, then as long as the story and everything else kind of checks out, we feel comfortable reviewing it with a high score. And the game was an absolute mess. Like, it's a hot mess, literally. And yeah, there are 2 magazines that are now out of print that gave that game a 9 out of 10, despite the fact that it was a terribly buggy, crashy, crappy version of a game. And so yeah, integrity does not go as far as it used to. Anyway, I can't believe we're halfway through the show. This is what happens when I have technical issues and I'm messing around with other stuff. It is, and I've even gone off the script again. But I will be playing requests. That's obviously the priority. And Madman, you had a request. You wanted, according to you, DJ Skits with Swine Flu Edit Remix. You don't specifically say what, though, so I'm presuming you're referring to DJ Skits' remix of the Omega Man with the Swine Flu Edit. If not, please let me know in the chat. But I have that lined up here for you, Madman. Take it away, DJ Skits.
Class 1 emergency. All civilian traffic is barred from streets and highways. Stay in your homes. Stay in your homes. Those found without specific military orders are subject to summary execution. Stay in your homes. Repeat, Comrade Channel. This is a Class 1 emergency. All civilian traffic is barred from streets and highways.
medical facilities have begun to crack under the strain. And civil defense authorities state the situation is much the same across the entire country. Martial law is now nationwide. The end of technological man? Is this the conclusion of all our yesterdays? The boasts of our fabled science, the superhuman conquests of space and time, the age of the wheel? We were warned of judgment. Well, here it is, here, now.
And that was a little bit of DJ Skits with Omega Man, the Swine Flu edit for Madman, I believe, was it? Yes, Madman. And also R. Chase and Boyer joins us on the chat, and maybe someone could be kind enough to throw in a link to the YouTube stream in case R. Chase wants to check that out as well. But of course, if you just want to listen in, that's cool too. I do my best to have a proper radio voice. Hello, it's KBBL 1079 coming at you on a Sunday evening. And also, I do appreciate Boyer also giving a bit of positive feedback with sharp edges of favorite topics. Well, I aim to please. Sometimes I just worry that what I'm talking about is just pure nonsense. And also, I think even I can just chuck in the link that I've asked people to chuck in because, hey, the listening is a bit delayed. There we go. There's a link on IRC in case someone wants to look at the visuals for the show. No pressure. I added a second topic because Cracks Ultima, you earlier in the chat here on IRC, you wrote, sigh, it's a sad state of affairs when someone grows too big, they always crave money. And of course, that statement on its own is, non-contextual, and you may probably mean it. I think you meant it in a way that I would agree with. Take it on its own, though. It could also mean something I don't agree with. And either way, it doesn't matter because my topic is kind of about size and greed and a situation where I do think it's a bit of a shame. And we're talking about a bit about games here. So an anecdote I find apt is a good friend of mine works for a game company that, together with a different company, has created what can be considered to be one of the biggest mobile hits in the past decade. And this is not an exaggeration. This is a massive game. They've made billions of it. Literally billions. Also, I need to... There we go. The game is a collaborative effort with this other company, and, well, let's just say things are a bit dicey. And from my understanding, success and money was definitely a contributing factor to this inter-company relationship worsening. And history is littered with this as well. Don't underestimate how little the other pieces of a collaborative puzzle matters when there is when there's money involved. As in, when there's no money, hey, we can sort of figure everything out, and we'll get through it somehow. But suddenly, when money hits the table, things look very differently. The likely outcome, as far as I'm aware. And I'm being purposely vague about this. What have I written here? The likely outcome of this situation I'm being purposely vague about, there we go, is that when the contract runs out at some point, the game will actually no longer be made available. Like the end of the pre-agreed contract will actually lead to the game probably not being available for download. And let me make this crystal clear. The game in question is still making a lot of money hand over fist. It's more or less guaranteed, I'd say, that by the time the contract expires, the the game will still be making a lot of money, and it being pulled from stores will actually have quite the negative impact on the amount of money it makes moving forward. And this is simply because the involved parties can't agree. And of course, circumstances matter. I don't know all the intricate details of this particular case. I just know that this sort of the kind of perception of justice in humans is something that can at times be incredibly counterproductive. Case in point, an experiment I recall reading about. In this experiment, one person is given some money, I think it's no more than $100, and told, you have to choose to split this money with someone else, and only if they agree to the split you decide will anybody get any money. Possibly to little surprise, the someone else tended to only agree when the split was 50-50 or more in their favor. And this kind of still begs the question, why? Both the initial recipient and this someone else had nothing to begin with. So any amount leaves them better off in this isolated experiment. And yet still people will outright refuse. And look, I can see the reasoning. If I don't agree, if I'm someone else and I don't agree, you get nothing. So pick someone I'll agree to, and then, we'll both get something. But still, if you have zero, agreeing to any non-zero split will gain you money. Like, why reject an offer? Even if it's 90-10, you will still be $10 better off than had you not agreed to it in this isolated case. And that's sort of the crazy thing about it. I think justice, like I said, is a big contributing factor, because in other experiments, they've tested people playing games together where someone could contribute to a pot and everyone would gain a little, or they could be very selfish and not contribute to the pot and gain a lot. And these experimental games have generally always shown that as soon as the society sort of identifies someone who's just leeching off others and not contributing anything, they will go to great effort, even at tremendous expense to themselves, to punish this other person, to make sure that they kind of step back in line. And I guess if you think a bit about how our society is structured, I guess it makes sense. Or I'd almost say, if you think about how evolution works, because if we didn't have this innate interest in justice, how would we as society move on? Because, how would we progress? Because everyone is also inherently egotistical. Food for thought, I guess. A little philosophical corner for you there. Let's play another request. Actually, no. Let's play my request. I want some Marcel Danné with Sweet, because we haven't had that in a while. Bit of Marcel Danet there for you with Sweet. LP Chip asked me to talk a little bit about my holidays in Germany, or rather my stay in Germany, and to be honest, there really isn't that much to tell, unfortunately, other than it's coming to an end. And before I forget that, because we're now 2/3 through the show, this is unfortunately the very last show I'll be doing at this particular time slot, because come next show, I will be back down under, where they throw shrimps on Barbies, and it's not actually shrimp. Well, they throw, what is it? Not shrimp, but God, now even I've forgotten it. It's not a shrimp, it's the other... prawn. There we go. That's what they say. A prawn on the barbecue, so to speak. Jeez, people in the chat are having a laugh, and I'm gonna, people can have their fun. I'm not. That's the other weird thing. Sometimes you might notice I actually I try to stay clean and not say words like fuck and shit and ass, and other times I just kind of blurt that stuff out, even though I maybe shouldn't, because maybe younger listeners wouldn't appreciate that. I'm gonna think about that upstairs. In the meantime, you guys can enjoy this request by Crax Ultima. He wanted Shoki with Sol Attacks, the end sequence. Whew. That was a little bit of Shoki Solitax end sequence with the nts for Crax Ultima. So I hope you appreciated that. I certainly did. I hadn't heard that song before. That's cool. Also, hot diggity damn, I think we've hit, I really should keep track of this because that's something my program would easily be able to do. I think we've hit a new viewer record of 8 people simultaneously watching the stream, which is really cool. Or maybe, did we have 9 once? I forget. I thought we were up to 7 or something. Anyway, cool that you guys are tuning in. I do appreciate that. And just for a little behind the scenes chat, because Immortal and I were having a little bit of a chitty chat about what's going to happen in the future. And I mentioned, among other things, that I've, and this, I guess this ties into what LP Chip was asking about what's been going on in Germany. There really hasn't been happening much except for holidays. So that basically just means doing stuff with family, catching up with friends, I guess exercising a bit because I try to keep myself as young as I can be as I readjust in the chair and notice that all my bones are popping and creaking in places they never used to. One of the things is I have a big-ass touch screen that goes with PmpVs Play, and contrary to popular belief, it's not actively always being used when I do the shows. In fact, it's these days very little being used, and I know that is, a bit counterintuitive. But here's the thing, and Immortal asked, he was surprised as well. It's like, you don't have a touchscreen? I thought this whole thing was touchscreen. And he wonders if I'm developing in a smaller touchscreen or just emulating, which seems a bit counterproductive. It is for use purposes, I agree. It would be much better to do the show with a screen, but I just haven't had the setup ready for it yet. But I hope to get there this year. The other thing, though, is that when developing, I can damn sure promise you that you'll want to develop some sort of emulation ability to use your system with a mouse. Because as nice as touchscreens are to interact with, if your development, peripherals are keyboard and mouse, you'll prefer to have your system also use keyboard and mouse. Because otherwise, switching between 2 different control methods while you're debugging is a bloody nightmare. You do not want to do that to yourself. So yes, PmpVs Play does do touchscreen emulation. So when I'm clickety-clicking away and moving, it's actually sort of an emulated touch thing, which I could technically show if I activated this interface visualizer, which I've also been working on because people have been asking to see the interface as well, and it's coming along. It's not quite there yet. For now, I'm afraid you'll have to be satisfied with my ugly face, which is here. For all the viewers that are here, I feel you've earned a little bit of a, well, I guess this is more of a punishment for the 8 people, but as you can see, I'm sitting in some weird dark void, and the brightest thing in the room is, yes, yours truly. And that's probably not a good thing. In fact, it makes me feel slightly radioactive, but hey, it is what it is. Beggars can't be choosers, and furthermore, my new favorite saying from Australia, God, I love the saying, is you get what you get and you don't get upset. And that's, man, I really like that motto. That's such a good motto. Also, 64 listeners, guys. That's pretty crazy. Commodore 64 and all that, blah, 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 blah. Anywho, let's turn off this webcam. There we go. And furthermore, let us line up something else, because now I was busy looking into my script and seeing if there was anything new there, and there wasn't. So I haven't actually done the proper due diligence work of lining things up. In fact, I'm just going to play this song because we haven't heard any of Kronberg. And I think Kronberg, with a bit of Fairlight, the East Sussex remix, is just what we need at this time. So we're rounding into the 4th quarter of the show. And there we go with a little bit of Kronberg, Fairlight, East Sussex, if I can pronounce things properly, Sussex remix. And I'm giving a thumbs up to the web camera to say, hey, thanks everyone for watching, because we've definitely hit what I think is a new high I've never been up to before, which is 10 people watching at the same time. I do realize some of that also has to do with the fact that I'm broadcasting in a much more consumable manner, and as other watchers, audience members, let's go with audience members, something a bit more classic, have been at pains to point out, people do catch the show every now and again on the download, which is also totally fair. And if you're just listening, hey, that's cool too. Either way, thanks for being around. That was, as I said, Kronberg Fairlight, the East Sussex remix. And just to completely deflate any sense of mystery, coming up next is PmpVsEurope, Last Ninja 2 CD, the Sewers Loader, which LP Chip requested. And Tub is asking in IRC, what is it that I don't know? Well, earlier in the chat, you said, what the heck is Kazoo talking about? And I don't know what you were referring to when you said that. My attention was elsewhere. And there went the webcam. Hey, we can't have good things all the time. Before I play this next song, I just wanted to mention, I thought a bit about, since it was the end of the year, if I should maybe also just talk a little bit about the stuff that I played in 2018 and what I liked about it. Because I simply don't play enough games anymore to do a sort of a proper game of the year type stuff thingy. But maybe I've had enough of a time with certain games to say, I like this, I didn't like this, what might I recommend, what might I not recommend. So maybe we'll get to that after this next song by PmpVsEurope. And a slow fade out to end there. Just gonna cut that out. Chatting a bit about putting in more triggers in the Plan Mix Play chat as well. Which there's again, as I mentioned, so much I want to put in and do, but time is limited. The thing that I have that I probably will be doing are putting in a couple more triggers, just because they are really straightforward to do. They still take time, but they're pretty predictable. It's like, oh, this will take almost exactly 1 or 2 hours. And Immortal, you've taken the words right out of my hands. That yes, with some of these triggers, abuse is ripe, and more work would need to be done to make sure it isn't, an epileptical nightmare. Because what I really want to do is kind of let audience members, influence the visuals to maybe make it look like the C64 is loading. But that sort of color flicker can be an absolute nightmare to have going on. And as much as it pains me to only give, like, in a perfect world, you would give everyone who's involved in something equal say and equal power. But that's just not a thing that's going to happen. So I've given that some thought. Heck, it would even be pretty cool to have like a tiered system. Or another way to do it would be, hey, if someone wants to trigger a load, they have to earn up a little bit of, I don't know, seniority or whatever. Like, if you watch the show for a while, you'll gain some silly PMP points, and then you can spend them on, like, making the screen look like it's loading for a bit or something. It's just something to temper that it isn't triggered, like, every second. Right. With that out of the way, I have a request I've put together here, and just want, of course, to mention that the song that I played for LP Chip wasn't actually his request. He wanted Hymn, but I gave him the Sewers Loader instead. And, well, as the saying goes, you get what you get, and you don't get upset. And I also appreciate that he, took it with a stiff upper lip. And LP Chip also chimes in and says a low FPS crunch screen would not cause epilepsy. No, that's true. But then it also wouldn't be very C64-y. If I recall, it really, when it gets loading, it absolutely flips the fuck out. Like, it goes absolutely crazy. Yeah. And, yeah, exactly. As Immortal also points out, it's very easy to get, very microtransaction-y and be like, hey, buy more triggers, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to sit here and say that isn't a cool, cosmetics aren't a viable support route, but that is so far ever in the future, if ever. There are so many other things I'd rather spend my time building than microtransaction related triggers. Like, yeah, I'd rather first spend more time on putting something cool in that, I don't know, that would be of interest to someone watching. Like, say, a rotating C64 logo? Let's just get rid of that. Anyway. What do we have here? I've lined up another song because I thought we, just to mix it up a bit, we play a song. And I've lined up Dr. Fika Lover with I Would Like a Fika, the Swedish Holy Ground version, because, haven't heard that in a while. Here we go.
want that fika? Would you like a fika? I wish to get a fika. Is this a good fika? Yes, it's a good fika, fika. Yes, I'd like some fika. Coming for the fika. Yes, I want that fika. Would you like a fika? I wish to get a fika. Is this a good fika? Yes, it's a good fika, fika.
Dr. Fika Lover with I Would Like a Fika. The Swedish Holy Ground remix, which is bloody awesome stuff, if you ask me. And I mentioned that I might chat a little bit about a game or two, but first I feel like I have a bit of air escaping my belly. Oh, I feel it, but it's not, doesn't quite want to get there. So instead I'll talk about the games, I guess. I didn't play much this year, well, I played some, but there isn't really anything that left. Oh, wait, no, there was another big one there, I realized. For a moment, I could only remember two bigger new releases I played, and then the third one popped in my head. So I'm only going to talk about this very briefly, because, hey, you have no shortage of stuff, no shortage of places, no shortage of stuff that will, help cater to you. And did I say this year, Immortal? I meant last year, sorry. I meant games I played last year. So, Dead Cells. If you like indie games and you like roguelite games or rogue-like games, sort of like a Metroidvania or Castlevania with a bit of Metroid in it. Actually, I guess a Metroidvania is more like explore these very separated room boxy type designs. And Dead Cells does have what's it called? God, struggling to remember the word here. It's called it's generated, but there's a word for it. Anyway, generated levels, I suppose. And it's a really, really solid platformer. Dead Cells you can really tell that the developers behind Dead Cells have spent a tremendous amount of time getting the controls so damn tight. Like, it is such a joy to play. I highly recommend it. I will say I was surprised at how quickly I personally got to the very end boss. Apparently I don't remember which one it was, but I think after playing it for 6 or 7 hours, I had a run where all the right weapons and upgrades kind of clicked into place, and all of a sudden I was at the last boss, and that was it. And arguably the game is meant to be played again and again. And yes, LP Chip helps China in. Procedural, exactly. It's procedurally generated. Arguably, Dead Cells is the type of game that's designed to be played more than once. So even though you get to the end, The idea is just to go through the game one more time and see what weapons you get, and you know, try to beat it faster. And I'm sure there's a lot of content I still haven't seen in that game. So that to me is a really good. I would strongly stand behind that game. I recommend it. Then I played a little bit of Fallout 4. Yeah, I don't know. The Fallout game I played the most was definitely Fallout 3, and I think it was just because at some point I got hooked enough in the various stories that game offers up to just keep going. I do like that Fallout 4 has really tightened the shooter part, which I talked about a couple of shows ago, or 1 or 2 shows ago, that the first-person shooter part has been tightened, and I know that is to the detriment of other players, or at least some people don't like that very much. But hey, I do like it. I do enjoy it. So look, if it's on sale, I'm not sure I'd recommend it at full price, but it's old enough that it gets on sale pretty often, and yeah. Then the last AAA title that popped into my head, where I was like, have I really only played these 2 AAA titles, or AAA and III? Yeah. Another one for the road. No, I've also played Shadow of War, the follow-up to Shadow of Mordor. It's more of the same. If you liked Shadow of Mordor and you want more of that, then guess what? Shadow of War is your thing. I got to the point there's a definitive point in the game where you sort of get an ending, and then there's like, hey, and if you want the real ending, keep playing. And even though they have apparently really, really, well, it used to be a huge grind to get the real ending, apparently. And apparently they have nerfed the grind a bit. They've made it a bit easier. They have changed things up so the game doesn't have loot boxes anymore. They've done a couple of things. And all the same, just looking at the sheer amount of stuff I'd have to do, because they have this very well put together overworld map where you get a very clear sense of what have you achieved and what do you have to go. And looking at that map, I don't know, I played it a little bit, and then maybe it's also because I'm a bit annoyed that my machine just can't run it at high quality. Like, it does bog down even running it on medium graphics. Every now and again, too much shit starts popping off. And I don't like that I am like this, but I am. If I can have it at like what I consider to be very acceptable high levels of both graphics and performance, then I just do something else. Like, instead of compromising on one of them, then I just walk away. And yeah, I think that game, if I buy a new laptop at some point, a new gaming laptop that can pull that game with no problems and no slowdown and full graphics load, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'll pick it back up. But for now, I got to that point in the game, which admittedly came after playing it for 20 or 30 hours. So clearly this didn't bother me that much all throughout the game. And then I hit that point where it's very clear that it's like, yes, you got the ending. Here's another one hidden behind another X hours of grind. And I think looking at it, it's like, no, this is going to take another 10 or 20 hours. And to be fair, I like the sort of twist that they give you. Things change. And the talents you have, because you build up this talent tree, sort of also gets a twist on it. And I do like that. I do think it was a very clever way to prolong the life, like give the game mechanics one last twist and a spin to have you keep playing. But the fact that they made it such a big grind, instead of just saying, hey, why don't we give you another 2 or 3 hours of this, and then you'll get the final ending. And if you really want, you can just keep grinding it out in this open world instead. But nope, they decided that it was probably best. It was probably best the way it was, just grind it out. Man, didn't things used to be better back in the better days? I think Power Traits with Zoids has a bit to say about that.
When I look back into the days, the better days, there was a feeling, but somehow things change. It just don't feel the same. Have you ever thought about the days, you know, the better days? Do you ever try to come up with a way you ever try to come up with a way, you know, to make it feel like it did in the better days?
No, I do not. I have not come up with ways to make it feel like it did in the better days because, quite frankly, generally things are way better. It's primarily news sources of various ilk that just have they have a tendency to over-report nasty, terrible shit because, well, that's kind of what gets people's eyeballs, and that's just the way it is, which is kind of sucks. But hey, there we are. Oh man, it is the end of the show, which I'm sad to say, but I do appreciate everyone sticking around, and up to a new high of 11 viewers, it would seem, on YouTube, so that's pretty cool as well. And I have a few final things to say here. First of all, I believe someone did request Skits and Moo with Final Grooving Synth Sample 1 at the start of the show through IRC, but the bot wasn't quite alive, so I'll be playing that as the end tune, so thanks to whoever requested that. Also, thank you to everyone in IRC who's hanging out, Cracks Ultima, Tub64, R Chase, Madman, and of course, thank you to everyone who is in the Plan Mix Play chat as well, which wasn't quite working. LP Chip, Cracks Ultima, Immortal, and Ape, so to speak. And furthermore, what I've come to realize, and this is the thing, I've talked a bit about this before, but generally, it's a bad idea to develop anything new and test it without, well, proper quality assurance. So close to, you know, an actual live show. And look, at this stage, again, the show is a very small thing. It's you know, I have a tiny soapbox to stand on. So I'd rather develop, like, up to the edge of something just to see if I can get more stuff working and kind of, you know, get more features in. But that also does mean that the risk of breakage is high. However, if you have sort of an emergency safety switch, like if my website had a sort of big emergency switch I could throw that would just permanently turn it into show mode and hand it over a YouTube link to feature, then that would have solved these issues. And that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to, of course, try and fix the issue. Yeah, that is what I will be doing, and trying to put in one of those like fail-safe switches just to make sure that when things do break in the future, and they will, then that won't make everything go belly up as it has this show. And also, Immortal states that the Planks Play and YouTube tab are eating 400% more memory than my other tabs, around 700 megabytes. Well, so first of all, I can't say if it's the Planmix Play tab without the video stream. That is strange to me. Also surprising. I would imagine I'm not surprised that the YouTube tab eats a lot, because that is video buffering and streaming, and that needs a lot of memory, and it might not be optimized, but those are things I can't really do anything about, really. So, I don't know. If I wish I could, but alas, I cannot. Also, before I go, I thought I'd just have a look at the schedule and see if there's anything coming up. I can see there's actually nothing announced at the moment, but I'm sure there will be shows coming up. I do not have an announced show for now. I may be doing one next weekend, but if so, it will be at the earlier time of day UTC time, probably around 11, 12, noonish as usual. But as a final treat for those watching, the credit sequence are finally in color as well. It's another small thing that I've been able to slap together while we take us out here. So once again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I've had a blast. I hope you have too. I hope you have an awesome Sunday, and I also hope you have a fantastic 2019. I'm going to let Skits and Moo take it away with Final Groovin' Synth Sample 1, and I'll see all of you next time. Goodbye, everybody.